We're so glad you're here. We're going to start the meeting by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to echo President Worden's remarks. Thanks again for being here. Looks like we have a smaller group. I know there were a couple that indicated that they couldn't be here on time, but it'll be showing up a little bit later. So thank you for all of you. I know it's a super busy time of year. Oh, my clicker, thank you. All right, we're going to get started. We have a full agenda. The first question I have for you is, did everyone receive the communication in the mail regarding today's meeting? Better yet, is there anyone who did not receive a communication? Please raise your hand. I'm sorry, not in the mail, via email, sorry.
Yes.
Everybody? You didn't? Okay, so there was some homework. Taryn, let me know, make sure you get it next time.
Yeah, I'll double check.
All right. So I'm going to run through a couple, the agenda for tonight. Again, password, network. And I'm going to share first and foremost that we've done a lot of work, we being Plant Moran, the administration, after last meeting. We heard you, we listened to you, we engaged in some value engineering exercises. I indicated that on the letter that you should have received. I'll stay in front of the mic. That you should have received in the via email. And I hope you had the opportunity to go through the various links. We're not going to go through all the links today, but we are going to obviously hit on the particular link where I will be making a recommendation based on your recommendation, some value engineering, and then ask if you are interested in continuing with that recommendation. So our meeting objectives this evening, and I've kind of timed it out, so hopefully it'll flow as follows. So once again, we can get you out of here a little bit earlier, or at least on time. First and foremost, in a moment, I'm going to share the 4 pillars of a successful bond. Secondly, I'm going to go over the homework items that were presented to you. I'm going to particularly focus on column E. Then we're going to go over public comment, which is at a different location today because I wanted the public to see column E prior to public comments. Then, if you recall in the first meeting, we did a lot of groupthink. In the second meeting, you had an opportunity to rank things individually. In this meeting, we're going to give everyone 1 minute to share whatever it is. There will be some parameters, but we'll pass the mic around and you'll have 1 minute to share what is important to you. Dr. Bishop will be facilitating that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about, as I indicated in the communication, majority voting on the contents of column E. So we'll spend some time on that, and that will be engaging with the QR code. Then we'll talk a little bit about where we are, and the rest of the meeting will go from what we decided that what the vote is in that majority voting of contents about column E, and then we'll decide where we're going to go from the remainder of the meeting depending on that. Just a reminder, for those of you who don't have it in your calendar yet, we have a very quick turnaround between this meeting and next of only a week. So, and I apologize, I know there are conflicts, but it's literally impossible to avoid. We have so many great things going on in the business. So I'm going to start with 4 pillars of success. I brought my glasses this time so I can actually read it. 4 pillars of success for a successful bond. First and foremost, you need to have clarity. This is that the public knows exactly what is in the bond. There is no confusion. Second, you need to have a balance. Every part of the community sees something meaningful to them in their local schools. Thirdly, you need to have value. The community sees that their tax dollars are being used wisely to directly improve the educational experience for students, whether through engaged learning environments, long-term savings, or visible, meaningful upgrades to the facilities and infrastructure. And then inspiration, I added this because you're going to see that if you didn't already in column E. Bonds typically have something visible and energizing that says, this is what our future looks like. This is the tomorrow of education. So I added some things in column E that you should have recognized or noted during your homework session. So these are the things that we focused on when we were value engineering, listening to you, both as a group and as individuals, and why I bring forward what will ultimately be column E in a moment. So Dr. Stanley, if you would open the first link, and I want to share with you as he's moving to the screen, there are 6 different links here. You received 4 of the 6. The other 2, Mr. Kent from Plant Moran We'll be sharing those. They involve floor plans that shows you the value engineering that occurred with both the LED lighting and the furniture that I referenced in the communication. We did not send that out, nor will we be publishing that, because for safety and security reasons, you don't want the general public to have your floor plans. So you will see them this evening, but those will not be shared with the public when we share this document. So I'm going to go over column E for you. I'm going to look at my phone because I can see it better than trying to do it there. Column E is what, after we spent a considerable amount of time looking at all of the data that was presented to us, both quantitative and qualitative, what we considered to be able to do. If you looked, there was a key at the top. I'm not going to go over this, but I hope you did your homework. And you saw that in column E, the blue items are items that were reduced via value engineering. The red items were items that made it above the line when you collectively voted. And then if you scroll down a little bit, Mr. Stanley, the pink items are items that were added. And the green item was something that was not initially on there, so it was added, but it was also on the initial proposal, but something has to be done with Cooper Square. So after value engineering and seeing that there was some additional revenue to be allocated, we picked up, my proposal to you is to pick up Cooper Square. I will tell you, my goal is that when this group ultimately presents a recommendation to the Board of Education, that the board can support that. So I've been listening to the board as well. I certainly don't want this group to do all of this work and then turn it over to the board and have them do something significantly differently. That doesn't mean that they might not make some changes to it. I would anticipate that they would, but at least there won't be major changes to what is being proposed. So the objective of tonight, hopefully, is to get somewhat close to what this group will be expending the $60 million that was allocated out of the $120 that would be generated from the entire bond. If you remember, $60 million of it, the district held on to for the most critical needs. So, the remaining boiler replacements, as you can see, there was a reduction in that. And that's because we took 2 of the newer boilers out of it, and we will be deferring those to sinking fund. We did that to allocate some more revenue into the bond so we could pick up some other projects. In a moment, I'm going to be asking you, are you willing to compromise and to do that? And we're going to look for about a 2/3 or a 66% vote, and positive vote for those who are present. The next line item is LED lighting. You can see subsequent to the last meeting, we went back and talked a lot about LED lighting, talked to our administrators, and you can see a reduction in LED lighting from what was first proposed. Again, that was to capture some additional revenue to potentially place in other locations throughout the district. And Mr. Kent will be speaking specifically about that in a moment. I'm only touching on the blue right now. Parcells pool area. This is a little bit confusing, and I've noted some confusion in the community regarding this, so I want to spend a little bit of time on this. The Parcells pool area was originally $5 million. After sharpening pencils a little bit, Plant Moran said, well, in fact, it's $3 million just to do the structural. If you remember, it wasn't the structure of the pool itself, it's the structure in the beams above, because there hasn't been a dehumidification system in that pool area, so there's been compromised structural damage. That pool was closed because of safety and security concerns, and there is no water in that pool as we speak today. So that's $3 million. The board must do something with that, and it's $3 million just to make that a usable space. Otherwise, it'll never be usable space, and as you know, that's a pretty large space sitting in one of our middle schools at Parcells. So we reduced that to $3 million, and that was just a check and a budgetary check on that. Then you can see, we go down to the elementary furniture. Again, in a moment, Mr. Kent is going to show you the scope of the elementary furniture has been reduced from its original scope, and that is based on speaking with administrators, and then the administrators absolutely defining where they need furniture. Why didn't this happen initially? Because you're not going to spend time on it if it's not a priority of the group. The group said elementary furniture, middle school furniture, secondary furniture is a priority of the group, and so then Plant Moran was tasked and the administration was tasked with identifying exactly where we need furniture. Some furniture has been replaced most recently and not needed. So you see that for both for the elementary furniture, the middle school furniture, the high school furniture. Initially, the high school furniture was $7 million when we talked. When we did the above the line, below the line exercise, that was the one that got split. $2 million of it made it above the line. $5 million of it was below the line. So what you're seeing is that we're capturing $2 million of it that was above the line that's still in red in column E, but we're capturing half of that remaining amount at the $1.5 million, just like we cut the rest of it in half as well. So the total is $3.5 million, which is half of the $7 million that was originally allocated to that. Again, Mr. Kent will show you that in a moment. Air conditioning still is not included in any respect in the bond. That might be something if there, after this discussion, if there is still money to allocate, that this group may decide. We certainly can't do it for the entire district, but perhaps there are areas that this group wants to have air conditioned with a split unit. Scrolling down a little bit. And on 20, Trombley, I want to talk just a moment about Trombley. There was a directive of the board that they wanted to get Trombley up to code so that those doors could be opened for some use to be determined at a later date. That is not coming out of the $60 million that has been asked of this group to define its use, but rather out of the $60 million that the district held onto. So the district did some value engineering on our $60 million as well to incorporate Trombley into that $60 million. I share that with you just as a point of information because it's a moot point for you in these meetings. However, it will be important for you as we educate people about what is included in the bond. Also, there was a document that was sent out to you that I hope you could open because some people have said they had difficulty that showed what what was all entailed in the $60 million that the district held on to. Did anyone have difficulty opening that? So you could also do that. Okay. Moving on, the GP South IA building. That was rated very low from this group, but the reality is that's another district asset that can't remain without being touched. It can't just sit there and dilapidate for the next 10. It needs some attention. And the board is aware of that, and so I included that back into our proposal that I bring to you tonight in column E. Then you can see other ideas we're going to talk about a little bit later if there is still revenue to be expended or to be spoken to. The Elworthy tennis courts, there was a proposal made via public participation at the last meeting. Plant Moran administration went back and looked at that, as you know, and one of the Q&A questions is, what is the contract with the city on that? If you did not get a chance to look at the Q&A, that is addressed in that Q&A in the document that was emailed to you. But I am suggesting that this committee commit $2.25 million to the Elworthy Court. And if you scroll over, Dr. Stanley, I want to be clear what is and is not included in that. There was an ask for quite a bit to be included in that, and we just couldn't pick up that with all the other needs of the district. But my recommendation includes the utilities, landscaping, permitting, contingency. You can read that. I'm sorry, I can't read that from here, but you can read. But I want to point out, it also states what is not included that was requested. So that's at the 2.25. The last column at 29, the last row, sorry, 29, at the 3.5 million. That is the GP North and South turf practice fields. After the meeting, I spoke at length with both athletic directors. You know, we had talked about a dome at first. No one was interested in that. However, there's certainly a need, and if you have an athlete at either North and South, it's a constant battle for practice time, or playing facilities. And so I am recommending, although this is a much lesser than the dome, it does allow for each North and South to have an athletic field, a turf athletic field, and location to be determined, although there was pictures of that location that were sent as well. But that is not the definitive location. Obviously, there's a lot that has to occur before, but just to give a picture of it. If you sum total that, did I talk about the repurposing the Parcells pool? I think it might be 24. Let's go back to 24, I'm sorry. So the Parcells pool, the $3 million covers the structural, but there's still $1 nothing you can do in that area. It's just an area with what was a pool and a lot of open space. So the 3.75 is the approximate cost it would take if the district chose to fill in that pool, level that facility, and create something really special at Parcells. There are numerous things that could be considered, and obviously I would want to ask the Parcells community and team what their thoughts are, but there's been discussions about an esports room, something special just to Parcells. Why would we not recommend a fitness center was another idea. Why would we not recommend reopening that pool? Because it costs between $4 and $5 million to operate annually. So there's just a cost, a huge cost in perpetuity for that pool. So my proposal that I bring to you today, given all the work that we have done as a team between last meeting and this meeting, equates to a sum total of $54,750,000. That is if this group agrees to all of the value engineering that I just indicated. And so in a moment, we're going to go to public participation, but in a moment you're going to have a QR code where you're going to say, do you agree with the value engineering or reduction in scope, however you want to phrase it, of the various items in blue. And if 66% of those present agree to that, we assume that we can move forward with that. If there's less than 66%, we need to talk about that and what that looks like and why. So for instance, if someone says, I'm going to say no, I don't want to reduce the scope of the furniture at all, well, that's going to bring those items above the line to a much higher sum than they are right now, which means that items that I proposed will ultimately fall below the line. I don't think we're going to be able to figure all of that out tonight, so we're hoping to gather your, not only your vote, but there will be an open-ended opportunity for you to address concerns that you may have and why you may have voted no on a particular area, and then we'll consider those and bring those back for the next meeting. And then after this, everyone's going to get a minute to talk, as I shared with you in the email communication. Dr. Bishop's going to facilitate that in a moment after Mr. Kent shows the value engineering for the two areas indicated, the LED and specifically the furniture. Then you'll have a moment to pass the mic table to table. You'll have 1 minute time, and Dr. Bishop's going to facilitate that you can share positives. She's going to give you the guidelines, so I'll leave it to him to do that. Then, from that point forward, we will open it up for the QR code and the vote. Yes, thank you, Dr. Stanley. Number 2 would be great. And go from there. All right, any questions about that? So right now you're just going to look at the value engineering.
Corridor lighting, and what that did, it gave us a reduction of approximately 60% of the original scope. But again, there's such a big impact by replacing all the corridors. I mean, it's one of the most commonly used areas in every building, as we all know. So what we did is we highlighted every floor plan of what would be replaced in each building, and that's the areas highlighted in blue. And if you see a floor plan that isn't highlighted, that means that those buildings were replaced in the previous bond.
So again, the initial number was to put LED lighting everywhere, classrooms and so forth, and the reduction of scope is just into the main areas.
Correct. Yeah, the initial scope was to replace all the areas in the entire district that haven't been previously touched in the previous bond or sinking fund. So this was a huge reduction. Again, it was 60% of our original budget. I think it was roughly a $6.5 million reduction in cost. Any questions on LED lighting? Yes.
I think this was brought up before, but was there any investigation into DTE rebates or rebates that you could get in connection with installation of LED lights?
Yeah, I mean, typically when...
I can answer
Paul, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, so a lot of those programs are still around. The really big credits were to go from like T12s to LEDs, which were kind of older fixtures. There are still some of those around, and we typically write into the spec that the contractor replacing the lights has to do all the paperwork to get whatever credits are available still. But a lot of those have gone away just because people have moved to either T8s or T5s and then to LEDs over the years. So there is still some money, and we'll make sure we get it if we can. But it's not as big as it used to be. Great question.
Any other questions?
Now, the overall cost of this, does this include rewiring and I mean, it just seems a lot for LED bulbs.
There's a lot of different ways to switch to LEDs. Sometimes you can retrofit the old fixtures and just put drivers and do it that way, but we found that that doesn't get you the same performance as it does if you actually replace them. And the way that you have to do them now, yeah, you've got to basically rewire the whole room all the way back to the switch. So just because of the way that they're interlocked. So yeah, it is expensive, but there's a great payback for LEDs. It's usually 4 to 5 year payback. So it's a good investment on the operation maintenance side.
Yeah, and it includes all labor, ceiling tile replacement, all the mechanics behind it, so there's a lot that goes into that number.
Like anything, when we bid it out, if we can, as we design it and bid it, if we can get it at a better price, we absolutely try.
The fourth initiative was to look at the additional projects at the IA building, Elworthy Field, and the Grosse Pointe North and South turf fields. So the first one being Grosse Pointe North and South turf practice fields. We put together a rough budget of about $1.75 million per field. As you can see here, we outlined where our proposed field location would be. These are not final. These can be up for discussion. Obviously, the buildings will have the final say. The scope of these projects includes converting the original natural grass fields into artificial turf fields. Again, the benefit would be allowing more students to access turf fields throughout the year. One of the challenges, obviously, with the south field would be the width and the available location. At south, we identified the area behind the visitor bleachers at the football stadium for now. North, there's a couple different locations. You could have where the current practice soccer field, I believe, is, or that practice field just north of the football field, which is what we showed on the plans here. Again, that's about 1.75 per field.
Yeah, and I would just add, those numbers are probably hedged a little bit just because Wayne County, with all the stormwater requirements lately, with all the flooding that's happened in Metro Detroit, we're not exactly sure what they're going to make us do to deal with all that
Paul, can I just
stormwater.
ask that you stand up just
Oh,
to make sure
sure.
that everyone can hear you?
Sorry, I usually have a big mouth, but I was just mentioning that Wayne County, with all the stormwater requirements, with all the flooding in the last few years in southeastern Michigan, we don't know for certain how they'll make us deal with that, so we try to make sure we budgeted carefully that we don't have to come back and ask for more money, so to speak. So, but that should be a good budget for those fields.
Any questions on the practice fields? All right. Moving on to Elworthy field renovations. So again, as Dr. Tuttle mentioned, we did review the lease, and one of the areas we looked to target was renovating the tennis courts themselves. So we put together a budget of about $2.25 million. That is inclusive of all hard costs, construction manager fees, architectural fees. What that would do is replace all 10 tennis courts with some post-tension concrete tennis courts, new fencing, new lighting, utilities, new sidewalks going back to the area, any landscaping that might be required, permitting fees, and all that nature. It doesn't address the actual pickleball courts or the restroom gathering area. We excluded those from this budget. This is just for the tennis courts themselves. Yes?
I think we heard previously that the last time these were approved, they kind of cheaped out, and the improvements didn't last very long. Can you tell me a little bit more about how long you expect this to last once we do it?
So a tennis court, if you replace it and do it right from scratch, I mean, you can get anywhere. As long as you maintain the courts properly and resurface them every 5 years, something like that. I mean, you can get 15 years, 20 years out of a tennis court, is my understanding.
Yeah, and I would just add, we're talking about post-tension concrete, which is the best way to do tennis courts. So a lot of times with asphalt tennis courts, they tend to crack in weird places, but with the concrete, they last a lot longer. They'll probably last 20 or 30 years, even longer than an asphalt court would last.
Great.
And this is property owned by the school system, not by the city. Is there any joint efforts with the city as they're being used by them?
I'll try to answer that. So I spoke with Joe Valentine from the city. Obviously, the city has some responsibilities to these courts too. I don't know if Rotary, I heard last time, might want to contribute some. But our goal was our focus is on our student athletes and ensuring that they have a safe place. So that's why we focus solely on the courts themselves, and ensuring that our student athletes, obviously our tennis players at South, don't have hazards when they're playing tennis. And then what the city, we would have to be in a joint venture with the city. And Joe Valentine is very aware. I sent him all of this, so he's very aware of what we are doing, which is not tie-barred to anything that they would do in the future or consider to do. This is a standalone project.
Thank you.
Are there going to be additional maintenance costs that the district would be responsible for? And if so, what are those, and is that considered, as we're moving forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the current operational costs are for Elworthy. Ben, do you have an idea?
According to the lease, we are responsible for 50% of the repairs moving forward. So anything that would be considered a repair, we would be responsible for 50% of that.
And then the city's responsible for the half of it?
Yes, correct.
Again, if you want to see that language, that contract language, it is in the Q&A. So please reference that at your leisure.
And the nice thing is with the new courts, obviously, the current operational costs would go down because you're not doing as many repairs every year. It's brand new, so they would, in theory, drop. Any other questions regarding the tennis courts?
So the cost for resurfacing that you mentioned every 5 to 10 years is not built into that price currently, correct?
No.
Okay. But that could be something that we might consider with the other.
Sinking fund.
Yeah, it could be longer. It depends with Michigan, as we all know, the weather is a coin flip, so it could be a lot longer.
Just one more question on that. Is it every 5 years you're gonna spend that much money?
No,
Or it's much less?
Yeah, much less. This is just, so obviously you have to demo everything, haul it out, put in a new base, and then basically build it from scratch. So this is a lot higher of a price tag than just regular maintenance.
Okay.
I'm going off memory, so don't quote me. But when we did North, it was around $80,000 for the 8 courts there.
Did everyone hear that? Then when they resurfaced the north courts, it was about $80,000 out of memory. All right, any other questions?
Let me go back to the here
All right,
slide.
the last project we looked into was the Rose Point South Industrial Arts Building. Like Tuttle mentioned, something does need to be done with the building. So we looked at demolishing the current building and then building a new 4,000 to 5,000 or 4,500 square foot maintenance storage building. The cost for each of those is about $1.5 million. The tough part is with demoing this building, it was obviously the catwalk, the bridge going over to the main building, and it's also connected to the bowl center. So demolition costs are going to be a lot higher because you're going to have to fix the facade and tooth back in all the demolition that you're doing when it's connected to the bowl center. Obviously the tight footprint of it as well. And then the new maintenance storage building, we use historical data from other buildings that we just built, and it's about $1.5 million all in. So this would be used to house all the storage equipment that's currently over there that's in the basement of the current IA building. It would just be a brand new facility for Mr. Madison and his staff.
And if you don't build a new building, there's no location for all of the equipment that's currently on that sub-level in that IA building, so something has to be done with that equipment. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Anything for him before? All right. Yeah, thank you. So I just want to go back to this slide. Thank you, Dr. Stanley. I just want to speak to here 5 is the shows that all the district captured 60 million that I referenced earlier, so you can peruse that as your leisure. You don't have to open that. And then 6 is the Q&A, which is where you can find, just for your review, where you can find that question regarding the contract with the city on Elworthy. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to President Worden for public comments.
Okay, anyone is welcome to come up and to state your name and the city you live in, and then each comment is limited to 3 minutes. I would also just remind you that this is the bond advisory committee session, and we've received a lot of emails from everyone. So if you could just keep in mind that we are trying to get through a lot of different items here and respect that time. Thank you. You can just come up.
Nice people, come on up. So we got Good evening. My name's Ian Stutters. I'm a resident of Grosse Pointe Park. I've got 3 kids that will go through the district. I'm one of the organizers for this Elworthy tennis court project. First thing I wanted to just ask anybody that's here because of the tennis courts, if you could stand up, raise your hand. Thank you. Great. We've got a couple other speakers here tonight that have expertise with tennis, tennis pros, tennis coaches at the high school, at South, and people that'll touch on other topics. Big picture, I want to thank everyone because I know that this tennis court project wasn't top of mind a couple months ago and it's kind of late to the party, so I appreciate everybody considering it. I know there's a lot of details with this tennis court project because of the city managing it day to day at Elworthy, but the district owning it. It's kind of in this unique purgatory. And as you saw with the lease language, it takes some going through to figure out. Big picture, I'm excited for what. Yeah, thanks. Keep talking. I'm excited for what is in the scope of work, which is to replace the courts, put lighting on all 10 courts. Right now, there's only 4 courts with lighting, so that would be a big improvement, and also replace the fencing. I'm also still excited to do things like the community building with public restrooms, because a lot of the people here tonight were here for both parts of the project. And I think that if the community building with public restrooms does not make it into the bond, which is understandable because of the other needs, I'm personally committing that I will work hard to raise donor money to get that building built, because I think it's very possible with some of the generous folks in our community, and I think the need is there. There's been the Rotary Club, Grosse Pointe Foundation, individual tennis donors. People can come together to do this. They just haven't all got on the same page in the past. They got close a couple times. So even if that doesn't make it into the bond, I just want you all to know that I will still work to help the bond dollars go further. And I think approving the courts in the bond will give it a lot of momentum for me to raise money for the community building. And I think what many people want for the site, whether it's tennis, pickleball, paddle, is a central spot for racket sports and youth athletics in Grosse Pointe. And that outdoor location is already Elworthy. We just need to make it better. Big picture, I have letters of support already, like I might have mentioned before, from the from the neighborhood club, the Little League, Eastside FC, lots of the key stakeholders of Elworthy field. So I don't want you all to think that I'm here alone just with the tennis community. There's lots of users of Elworthy that are aligned with us on this. Also, I think, like I mentioned, the district funding will create a positive chain reaction, and I think that you should consider that about how all these people here tonight could help get this bond passed with our enthusiastic support for the Elworthy project and the other projects that maybe will be in the bond. I think that with the tennis community on your guys' side, we can get this bond done. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is to offer some perspective on how the courts, the paddle tennis courts, came to be, what they contribute, and the upside potential. Years ago, it all started with convincing the city of Detroit to donate 2 courts sitting on Belle Isle at the old boat club property. The Grosse Pointe location idea was so that all the municipalities could benefit. The neighborhood club director at the time pointed us to the city council, who we went before with a coalition of community supporters to pitch the vision and benefits. They approved it after one follow-up meeting. The rationale was and is that paddle can be enjoyed by people of all ages, both sexes, including mixed doubles, that it can be played at night for those with day jobs, and that it provides an additional healthy outdoor activity during the colder months for otherwise relatively dormant parks. We also made the point that it's complementary to one's tennis game and other racket sports. Today there's lots of cross-pollination and overlapping fun between tennis, paddle, and pickleball, with everyone's games, plural, improving as a result. Finally, we pointed out that all the best paddle tennis communities and tennis communities throughout the Midwest, East Coast, and out West have public courts of both kinds. Now, all three kinds. And when I say all the best, I mean the suburbs with the most robust levels of play are also the most desirable places to live and raise a family. As for upside potential, in the first meeting, we used the example of the Winnetka, Illinois courts where they started with 2 in 1978, also led by local residents, and now have one of the most successful public facilities in the country. Now with 8 courts, adding 2 more just in 2023, Winnetka now has 700 active members, many of which compete in the absolutely thriving Chicago leagues. They also have a beautiful award-winning multi-purpose building to congregate in before and after play and for viewing and to support teaching pros, lessons, clinics, ball machines, reservations, social events, and tournaments for beginners to elite players. All self-funded via donations and dues, for example, that pay for a construction bond, operations, and maintenance. And the dues are significantly less than private club dues and initiation fees. On a personal note, I believe adding the 2 neighborhood club courts may have helped instigate the farms to adding their courts and building. And I know from experience that those 2 courts have contributed significantly to the enormous growth in platform tennis across demos and skill levels here. For example, the amazing success and growth of the new league play that now exists for the first time, thanks to Ian and others, I would say first-class, all-inclusive grassroots efforts. Lastly, I'll just say, and this is kind of funny, shortly after the 2 courts first launched, paddle friends complained to me that they had made it difficult to reserve time at private courts. They jokingly blamed me, and that's when I knew we'd succeeded. I wish you luck in keeping the momentum going.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Brian Keene. I'm a Grosse Pointe Farms resident. I'm the owner of Eastside Tennis and Fitness Club and the boys varsity tennis coach at South. Why do we live here? For me, the reason is simple: family. We choose Grosse Pointe for our schools, the parks, the wealth of resources that we give our children. I'm here tonight to speak about the tennis courts at Elworthy. 2 years ago, I returned to coach at Grosse Pointe South. During one of our matches, I met with Brandon, the AD at the time, to show him the cracks in the tennis court. Not 1 minute after I showed him, one of my players tripped on one of the raised cracks and twisted his ankle. I'm grateful for the work that was done last year on the courts, but it's just the same Band-Aid that we've been doing before. The cracks literally start returning within the first year. During our first season this fall, there's already cracks on the court again. We need a real solution. Post-tension concrete courts, they last over 25 years. The investment for this scenario is over 30 years past due. How would new tennis courts impact our community? Tennis is unique. It's a lifelong sport. The senior men's tennis group, which plays at Elworthy, they have over 60 active players, ages 61 to 95, and they play there 3 days a week. Tennis in Grosse Pointe is thriving. Our adult programs are here are among the largest and the most competitive in the state. At the high school level, the girls' South team just swept every flight at regionals and took first place. Just this past boys' season, I hosted a 13-school regional tournament. We had over 150 players and adults trying to use a facility lacking resources. Right now, we're telling kids, and 90-year-olds alike, there's no working drinking fountain. If you need to use the restroom, you have to run across the street. And even more importantly, what do we do when a high school player or a senior men's player trips on the patch tape coming up from the courts and breaks a wrist? With allocation from this bond, we can fix this narrative. This isn't a luxury project. It's not just about tennis. It's about safety, community, and access for everybody. It's a necessary investment, one that will pay dividends for generations, and ensures that toddlers playing now can also continue to play into their 90s. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
I live near the Elworthy courts, and I, like many other people, have been spending time there and playing on the courts since I was very little. For the tennis season, we begin when it's extremely hot out in August, very sunny, and it's sometimes difficult when we go to other places and they have these massive like bleachers and brand new courts, and they have like massive amounts of fans, and it's very difficult that we don't have running water sometimes when people, like, if you run out of a drink, there's nowhere to get anything else. A big issue is the bathrooms, because the neighborhood club, although they do have a public bathroom, if we go and send, let's say, 5 people across the street to use the restroom, the neighborhood club will get upset and refuse to, sometimes will, like, it takes time and they'll get upset with many people using their one public bathroom. And another issue with the courts is that I was playing there the other day and there were already some dead spots, and so the resurfacing is coming undone, and unlike some other schools where we go to and they have brand new facilities, brand new courts, and while the resurfacing was great this season, over the winter it has sort of fallen apart. And another big thing would be lights would be a great help, because during the end of the fall when it starts getting darker earlier and it's colder outside, our matches can sometimes get pushed later due to weather, and then when we start playing later it gets dark, and there have been times where we've been playing and people have been stuck because they missed or because they couldn't see, or running into things because there's a difficulty in seeing, and really just this bond would really help our community and the tennis courts. So thank you for your time, and thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Petrowski. I live in Grosse Pointe Woods. I'm a USPTA certified tennis teaching professional. I've been teaching in the community for 25 years. I want to start by thanking all of you for your selfless gift of your talent, time, and treasure, and for all that you do. I know this work isn't easy, and I'm here today because I believe you have a unique opportunity to make an investment that reflects the best wishes of what Grosse Pointe has always been and can continue to be. There was a time when Grosse Pointe was known for excellence in tennis. In the 1980s, we had 2 players ranked in the top 10 in the world. And Grosse Pointe South won states 13 years in a row. Today, we still have great student athletes, but the infrastructure has not kept pace. Recently, I was at a high school match, and an Eisenhower parent asked the question, what happened to Grosse Pointe tennis? The courts at Outworthy Park haven't been rebuilt in decades. There's no restroom, outdated water fountains, and the surfaces have patched over cracks. Meanwhile, most other tennis courts in our community are either locked or require a park pass. For many of our district students, especially those who can't afford indoor training, Outworthy is the only real option, and that's why it's so important these courts are open. They're accessible. Developing your tennis game is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It takes years and hours of repetition. A young 8-9-year-old player needs to have courts they can easily access and ride their bike to develop the skills they'll need to play for their high school varsity team. The courts are also very visible to the public. With their visibility from the top lot, baseball fields, soccer fields, and traffic to and from the village, the nicer the courts look, the better the impression that we give to visitors from other communities and to the parents of toddlers who are the district's prospective future students as they play on the playground there. Newly constructed tennis courts with good lighting, working water fountains, seating for players and spectators, as well as new nets and windscreens would send the impression that our communities and schools invest in our student athletes. These courts are so important for our student athletes in our community. I was telling an 80-year-old student of mine about coming to talk here tonight, and she said that she learned to play at the Outworthy courts when she was 8 years old. Imagine what this investment could say. That Grosse Pointe is still a place where kids can build confidence and commitment through sports. That we take pride in our student athletes, and we are committed to their success. These courts are our heartbeat and mean so much to so many. I know you're facing tough decisions, but I hope you'll see this project not just as a line item, but as a chance to reinvest in a shared asset with long-term returns. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello, my name is Kevin. My name is Kevin Daly. I live in St. Clair Shores. I'm the girls JV and varsity assistant tennis coach, and also the boys varsity assistant tennis coach. The girls team this year and perennially is a top 10 team in the state. They're currently ranked 7th, and the head coach Mark Soborowski apologizes for not being able to make it here tonight. He's in Lansing currently in a seeding meeting for the state tournament, which is next weekend for the girls. There are significant safety concerns on the courts 1 through 4, and those were the ones that did not get the resurfaced. They still have large cracks in them where the ball takes bad bounces, kids can twist ankles, and there's also black algae spots on the back behind the baselines where if there's any dampness, those stay wet and slippery for a long time. And you can't use the roll dry to get those dry, so we have to sit and wait. So we've had weather delays where we can get the ones that have been resurfaced or potentially new ones drier quicker than we can't play on the old 4 ones, the old ones 1 through 4. So it runs into delays there. Having the courts lit, all the courts lit, would be a significant improvement to our programs. It would allow, if we run into any weather delays, it would allow us to keep on doing the tournaments because both boys and the girls team run significant tournaments on Saturdays. And we've run into weather delays before where we keep on playing until 5, 6, 7. And depending on the time of the year, you could run into some darkness. And those lights would allow us to continue to play and finish off that tournament versus having to either just stop play or come back the next day. And both the boys and the girls teams also host regionals where we can run into that same problem of weather delays. And there we have to get that tournament done. So, also with the lights, there's a lot of times where the varsity team will have a match that day, and then I have to end up canceling JV practice because of the fact that they have their match. Where now with the lights, I could move their practice till after the varsity match is done, because we'd be able to play into the dusk hours and continue on practice. Because I've lost a handful of practices, which we already lose enough to weather as it is. I hate to lose practices just to darkness. So I appreciate all your support on this project. It'll be a great benefit for both the boys and girls tennis team at Grosse Pointe South and the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a junior at Grosse Pointe South High School and co-captain of the girls varsity tennis team. I'm grateful for the opportunity to represent the 32 young women and their families who currently participate in our girls, junior varsity, and varsity tennis programs. Across the points, we're seeing growing numbers of young ladies trying out for tennis, and we continue to be the dominant program in our region as evidenced by last week's sweep of the regional tournament. We're incredibly fortunate, given the real estate constraints around the school itself, for the opportunity to practice and host matches at a beautiful location in the heart of our district. However, I'm here today to provide our program's perspective on the urgent needs for investment in the tennis facilities. Starting with court safety. Although cosmetic repairs were completed on 6 of the 10 courts prior to the start of the season, all of the courts need a ground-up resurfacing. Large cracks, which received a superficial treatment already, create dead spots in the 6 recently repaired courts, and those cracks will almost inevitably reemerge following the next freeze. Cracks and uneven surfaces throughout the facility impact playability, but more importantly, pose a tripping hazard. The uneven surfaces are also slow to dry and promote puddling and collection of sediment, which creates slip spots. Inadequate lighting adds to the potential for injury after sunset. A rolled ankle or a bad fall during the season impacts not just that player, but the entire team's ability to compete and win. We have already had several injuries occur this season with our players. Now let's talk about restroom facilities. Our team hosts tournaments with visiting teams from across the state, regularly welcoming up to 56 players and over 100 family members, starting at 8 a.m. and running as late as 5 p.m. The absence of on-site restroom facilities often delays the start of matches and is inconvenient for our families and spectators. It also places an unreasonable burden on the neighborhood club, who very graciously welcomes players and their guests to use the 2 single restrooms accessible via their lobby. The long walk and wait for available restrooms can make it challenging for grandparents and those with limited mobility to attend matches, let alone day-long tournaments. In conclusion, it's not simply our team and our local tennis community that can benefit from this investment. We have an opportunity to showcase the best of the points to those visiting from surrounding communities and promote their own discovery of the amendments, shops, and restaurants that make the village and our community so special. The quality of our tennis facilities should reflect the continued success of our program and make a lasting impression on the players and their families who are courageous enough to come take their best shot at beating us. Thanks for listening and for your continued support of the Grosse Pointe South Girls Tennis Program. Go Blue Devils!
Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you especially to the students that came and gave us your opinion on what we should do with the bond money. We really take those to heart, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to turn the floor over to esteemed Dr. Roy Bishop Jr. He is going to talk a little bit as we move forward with this process. It's important to create space for all of the voices in this room to be heard. So like I shared at the beginning, we're going to give you that opportunity, and he's going to share with you the rules of the game.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dr. Tuttle. Thank you to our community members, but especially our students. It's always so great to hear our students' voices, so it's good to hear them tonight. And we hope you have your continued success as well. So, I know we had our community members have a chance to be able to speak, but we always want to make sure that we're creating spaces, especially in big meetings like this, where we have a chance to have some real honest conversations. So we're going to do exactly that. We're going to give each one of you who would like to have an opportunity. We're not going to force you to use your 1 minute, but if you would like to have an opportunity, we want to give you that chance to be able to do that now. We want you to understand the purpose of this activity, because I think the purpose is very powerful. This is your opportunity to share what's on your heart, positively or constructively. We know sometimes in a group this size, participants may feel like their concerns have not been heard yet, and this is time to acknowledge those concerns that you may have, okay? So we want each speaker to take 1 minute to be able to express and support a project or share a specific concern about a project or priority. Please frame all feedback with the intent to understand before you're trying to be understood and to improve outcomes. This is not a debate. We are not looking to debate someone else about what they feel like should be above or below the line. But this is an opportunity for dialogue, a chance to be able to elevate what you feel like truly matters. And we want everyone to be able to share their voice today if they would like an opportunity to. We have a shared goal that we need to make sure that we keep in mind. And that's for us to provide clarity, collaboration, and community-centered decisions. But there's also one thing up there that we should have put up there that we didn't. We also need to make sure that our decisions are ones that are best for kids. So let's keep that in mind when we're doing that. Before we get started with the 1 minute timer that we'll start passing the mic around for people who want to be able to speak, I think it's important that we have some norms. So Dr. Stanley, can you go to the next slide for me so we can talk about our norms? Thank you, sir. I like how you hopped over that. That's great. Are you starting the timer on me, Greg?
Yeah.
So, here's some of our norms that we have. Assume positive intent. Everyone is here because they care. I don't think anyone is here because they want to sabotage anything that is going on. We are here because we are here, so let's continue to keep a place of trust, even if we disagree. It's okay to disagree respectfully. Speak your truth with respect. Share what's on your heart, but also invite understanding and not conflict. Be hard on the ideas, but soft on the people. Okay? People may have an opportunity to share something that may be different than you, and that is okay. We are here because we all have different ways of thinking. So support what you can support. Focus on the priorities and not the personalities of people. Do not go after people during this time. Use this time to make sure you are advocating for something you feel passionately about as it relates to a project. One voice at a time. Okay? Yes, unfortunately, I will have to grab the mic from you if you are doing that. Okay? So do not do that, and don't be that person as well who's like, here's the beeper going off. Know your minute is over. This talks 2 more minutes. Don't be that person. All right, and then last, stay solution-oriented. Use your voice to help us improve what we already have because we know our students deserve it. We want to continue to move forward. We don't want to move backwards. Do I have a brave volunteer who wants to be the first to use their 1 minute? You know what, Ed? I knew you were going to do that. You know what?
Give me the $20 later.
I don't have 20. My kids took it from me, but I got 5. All right, I'm starting the timer on you.
Go.
All right, go.
All right. Hi, everybody. Coach Ed Lazar here, track and field and cross country at Grosse Pointe North and Pierce Middle School. First of all, having been involved in processes like these before, I want to thank the administration and all those who got together between meetings to kind of grind through all the details and make sense of, make better sense and more detailed information for all that we've already discussed. To get this far with those fine-tuned numbers is no small feat. So congratulations and thank you for doing that. The other half is going to be an ask, of course. You have to ask for more. At the west end of Grosse Pointe South's track is a painted concrete area by the pole vault runways and the long jump pit. Painted concrete. Kids this is now a safety issue with athletes trying to run across that either with soccer spikes or football spikes. If they can't stop in time getting through the end zone, they're slipping and sliding on there, and the track athletes are also having a struggle running in their spikes there. And I know it's going. I hear it.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. There we go. So about $125,000.
He's gonna speak without him. He doesn't matter. He's gonna keep on going. I appreciate it. All right, who's next?
Dr. Bishop, will you pass it to the next person? I just want to let you know that Mrs. Fannin is recording all of these with our hopes that Plant Moran will take these back and put numbers to them, and then they will be considered if there is revenue remaining after we vote. All those things will be considered next time. So if you're wondering the purpose of this exercise.
Andrea Grunwald, I teach family consumer sciences at Parcells. My toxic trait is I always volunteer to go first. So thank you, Mr. Lazar. And I just, as a teacher, I feel like, and I know it's an unpopular opinion with Taryn, but I'm always looking at everything through an equity lens. And I would be probably like, I don't even know, I don't want everyone to say what the other teachers would do if we didn't push for air conditioning in our buildings. My classroom has 6 ovens, and when we get to, usually this time of year, Dr. Reed had a student pass out in my classroom when they walked over. When I was pregnant, I had to go to the emergency room because I was so dehydrated from being in the classroom. So it would be really beneficial to our students and teachers if we just looked at air conditioning, even strategic, and got that above the line. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
2 seconds to spare.
You must be a teacher.
You're right.
My name is Kaveh Keshef, Grosse Pointe Shores. My kids are at Ferry. I'm going to make a plug for the Parcells pool and keeping it as a pool. I think that decades ago when the school district had the foresight to put pools in our middle schools, it was an incredible stroke of luck that we would have that. I think physical fitness is extremely important for our kids as well as water safety. It is extremely dangerous. Myself, having almost drowned when I was very little, it's something that's very important to me and my wife. And I think it's something that we shouldn't ignore. $400,000 per year is a small price to pay to not only teach physical fitness but also water safety. I also think it should be known, if those do not know already, that there seems to be a push at the state school board level, school district level. There's a House bill that is looking to push water safety through the school districts of the state, and to have those pools already ready for that mandate would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Hi everyone, oops, I don't want to fall. Melissa Palapu, I live in the Farms. I just want to make one quick plug for overall success of the bond. I really feel like we need to choose something that the community will get engaged in. I think that people are less free with their money now and a little bit more unsure about the economy. So I think, the people that came for Elworthy, they have come twice and they have come in groups. And I just think that's a really good marketing thing as well, because not only are they people who are going to vote for the bond, but they're people who are going to sell the bond. So whether it's that or a different project, I just think you need to have something that grabs attention so that you can get all the other things that you want as well. If you have nothing that grabs attention, you will get nothing at all. So.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Marilyn Kapansky. I'm a community member from Parker Woods. I have a 2-year-old daughter, so we frequent the top lot. So I am in support of thinking about a bathroom situation there, and even if we have to be creative with that, I think that would
not only benefit those using the facilities for tennis, but also the parents and families there. And that would also help interface with the community and I think get some additional buy-in, even for those who don't have kids currently in the schools, including people of all ages who play tennis. I also want to make sure that we keep a focus on student safety and equity and inclusion and access to all of our buildings as well. I think air conditioning does fit in as part of that because I think that will become a safety issue, especially depending on how hot our springs and falls are. So.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Ruiz. I am a parent from Harper Woods. I have 3 children in the district from elementary, middle, and high school. Something that I want to say is that I'm really adamant about how do we retain students and staff. You want to think about the environmental setting, so let's really look at the heating and cooling, so at least that we can control that variable at the minimum. And then when we look at, I'm being biased, but I would love to see a pool at Parcells, because if we have at the other 2 middle schools, we're talking about let's unite the district. So let's have the south, middle, and the north end covered. So I'll push for that, and hopefully something that can unite the district more so. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sarah Dirksey. I'm a principal at Pierce Middle School and also am a parent of 2 students in the district. And so I would just encourage the group, number one, I was excited to be a part of the committee, and I feel like our charges are to think about what impacts instruction. And so I would echo, can we be strategic with our air conditioning, because I believe that directly impacts our students, as well as the furniture, what our environments look like in their classrooms. Also to consider items that increase access for our students, but also know that we are a community organization, and so how can that work twofold? And then thirdly, think about what things will help our district consolidate our resources. And so I know the IA building is on the list, and I think it's an opportunity for us to be able to consolidate some of our resources strategically, which would be helpful.
Thank you very much.
John Arnold, Grosse Pointe Farms. There are 2 sets of expenditures we've talked about that have never made it into the figures we've been able to vote on. The first is early childhood and preschool offerings, which would draw families into the district and lead to increased K-12 enrollment. The second is STEM education. Our children will live in an increasingly technology-driven world and need to be prepared for it and be able to compete successfully for technology-driven jobs. I also don't see anything in the proposed items that show Harper Woods any special love. Instead, they will see that Trombley stays open with no defined purpose while Coupard and their pool are closed. Ethically, we need to better serve that community, and practically, to pass the bond, we need to show them there's something in this massive expenditure that recognizes the importance of their children. What did make it into the figure somehow was $3.5 million for state-of-the-art practice fields. I can see the value in these, but meaningfully less than the above. I propose that we add the practice fields $3.5 million to the unallocated $5.25 million, and that we charge the administration to use at least a significant portion of the $8 to $9 million to fund exciting and new early childhood and STEM offerings, plus special programs, perhaps enhanced transportation aimed at the clearly non-walkable Harper Woods area.
Thank you very much.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody on the committee knew that I, since this committee started, I've come back to work for the district, but I'm not wearing my work hat right now, and I didn't tell Dr. Tuttle that I would be saying this. In fact, just as I was doing my homework.
We'll decide if you're coming back tomorrow.
Yeah, all right, thanks. So wearing my mom hat as somebody who's seen a lot of teams waiting, trying to have time on practice fields, I have a wondering. I'm wondering if we do the 2 practice fields, if it would make sense to locate the south field, not at South, sorry, Andy, yeah, but at a place where it could be an actual field size so that it could be used for competition as well as practice. So if we did that at Barnes, or if we did that at Brownell, or some other place where it would actually be a regulation size field, that might be more palatable.
Thank you very much. I love when people try not to make eye contact with you.
I'm Joe Janae, Grosse Pointe Woods, Ferry parent, Parcells, who would be Grosse Pointe North parent. I don't really have anything to kind of push for, but it's clear that we're not gonna get everything we want, and some feelings are gonna get hurt, but I want to commend the committee, and whatever happens at the end of this, to please push this bond with vigor and support it, and it will benefit our kids. Maybe not in every way that we want, but in the long run, it will benefit the kids of this district and this community. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Sean Cotton. If I understand what I saw correctly on the above the line and below the line worksheet, it looks like there's enough there with it looked like almost 54 million with something to do with the Parcells pool, with the practice fields at both areas, and with the tennis courts. And I think that in order to make decisions, if there's a lot of theoretical things thrown out there, but I think we're at the point to where we need to make the hard decisions. And I would say that we could allocate the 5 million plus left over to the air conditioning and doing some kind of spot value engineering. I think the value engineering that we did to date is really great to get to a decision where we have those things that the community would really look at and say these are the great things to vote for, but then also have this group decide what do we do with Parcells. I think that's really what we need to look at is what are we doing with Parcells.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Andrew Schmiley, Athletic Director from Grosse Pointe South. I'm going to stay on brand, talk about athletics. We did, there's so many great projects, and I don't want one to go over the other, but I do need to advocate for some really important things. We've talked about the importance of the tennis courts. I mean, they're a safety issue. I mean, they truly are. I mean, right after they got done, I think Brian had me out to the tennis courts a month after season started, and they were already cracked. So that is a big issue. And then the practice fields, I know I've spoken about this before, but when there's not enough space for kids to practice, when your soccer team can only practice 4 days out of a whole season on the field, I think that's a big issue that we need to talk about. Where it goes, I think we have enough space at South, but we can talk about that later. But that it's a huge thing. I don't want kids practicing until 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. So thank you.
Dr. Bishop, I'm going to use a moment and give Andy one more minute because he and I know you speak for Jim Ellis, so you're going to use Jim Ellis's minute just to talk about locker rooms a little bit because that came up after as well. So can you speak to that?
Well, good. Hey, already an extra minute.
It could be a fundraiser.
Okay. So the locker rooms inside the gym, right? Yeah.
At both north and south.
At both north and south. So they haven't been renovated in a long time. In old school, we had showers. I remember when I was in high school, we showered, but nobody showers anymore. And these are wasted spaces that are in there where we could reconstruct the locker rooms. We could give them bigger lockers. Our softball teams are constantly having to leave their gear either in my office or in a classroom or in different places because of their bags, their tennis rackets, and all the stuff from all of our sports teams that carry those big bags. So being able to renovate those spaces, making it more functional, we could have even team meeting rooms inside, with the space that we already have. So renovating those, the restrooms are not in very good condition. We call them the pit locker rooms at South, but North has the same issues. So renovating those would be going a long way for athletic programs.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis says thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I saw just a sign of hand.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nina Hassan, principal at Mason. I just wanted to echo all of those who talked about the air conditioning. For the schools who do not currently have air conditioning, it is a safety concern, but it's also one that supports the academic achievement of our students. It becomes very difficult for teachers to be able to teach and just have students remain engaged and focused and feeling like they can stay in the classroom and learn. And I think at the end of the day that we need to be advocates for that. Yes, we do have ceiling fans, but in the mindset of keeping our doors closed and locked for safety and security, turning on a fan with hot air makes it even more difficult for them to stay focused. So we've definitely seen the students have to come down, dehydration becoming an issue, feeling overheated, coming to the clinic or to the office. So we really appreciate you taking that into consideration.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Colleen, Worden. I'd like to focus on just a couple things that I think that affect student learning. No one has mentioned the academic portions of things like the South Media Center and the Grosse Pointe North Art Studio, and also the district IT hub location, which obviously affects the Wi-Fi and all of the technology that we use. I do agree that some of the things that were mentioned about the sports, that attracts people, the tennis people, the athletic fields. I am totally in support of that. But I also want to make sure that the things that we select also go to the academics, because that's why we are here, the excellence of our academics for our students. So we can't in my opinion, let those things be lost either, because really those are the things that affect our kids' academics. So I just want to make sure that we take a look at those as well and push for those for our kids.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I think you have to go, Taryn.
Taryn Laughlin, English teacher at South and co-president of the GPEA. I fully support air conditioning in the spaces where you need them. I'm saying that there are other things that are also equally important, so setting the record straight there. I do think we talked about having shiny things that people can coalesce around, and I do think some of the sporting things would be a good idea. But to echo what is our job as a school district, it is to educate kids. And so there has to be a balance of picking the things that are most important in our priority of the service we provide to this community, which is education, and then extracurriculars next. But fix the courts.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once. I just want to thank the committee. Like, this was amazing. Like, when we made these norms, I had to go in completely differently. So this is actually great that we had a really robust conversation and we're nice to each other.
How'd you have
It's always
it
a
going?
plus. Huh?
How'd you have it going?
Well, I mean, you know, we always prepare for some things to kind of go off the rails a little bit. But this was actually a really good time. So once again, did anyone else have an opportunity or did not have an opportunity and wants a chance to be able to share their voice? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Nice job. I have asked Robert Stippian from Plant Rand to kind of come and chat a little bit about the pool concerns, because Parcells Pool is not the only one that has a concern. And I think you need to hear from the expert who's been here. You can share how many years, but Robert Stippian from Plant Rand.
8 years now. So the Parcells Pool is kind of an interesting project in itself because of its current condition. We did an investigation when we wanted to do a ceiling and lighting replacement program over at Parcells. And once we opened up the ceiling, we noticed that there were some issues related to deterioration of the steel and a lot of rust. We had some experts come in and do a deeper dive and to look at what would be needed to reconstruct that area and take care of some of the issues with the steel. Some remediation that would be involved as well. So the price tag crept up to quite a substantial dollar amount. So we put the ceiling and lighting program on hold. We decided to close the pool. The district decided to close the pool until further discussion was made about whether or not we should reopen it as a pool or repurpose it into something else. If you decide to go and use it as a pool, there's some things that need to be done mechanically. There's a hot water system that needs to be replaced, a boiler, along with dehumidification, which it currently does not have. That's critical for preventing it from deteriorating further and having the steel rust like it is in its current state. So. And that's probably the biggest reason why that pool has evidence of rust on the steel is because it never had dehumidification. I believe it was built probably in the 50s, Parcells. So it's gone through many decades without dehumidification. There were some exhaust fans, there's 3 of them on the roof that would exhaust the air out of that pool, but currently they're not functioning. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything that you may have on the pool.
Do the other pools have the dehumidifiers or whatever the system?
Well, your newer pool, well, Grosse Pointe South, Grosse Pointe North, Brownell does, I believe there was an installation.
I think actually we designed that solution, but I don't think we ever
never
installed
implemented.
it. No.
Okay, so the middle schools do not have dehumidification in the pools.
So is it fair to say that the other middle schools will eventually lose their pools as well?
I can't speak to that. I think we'd have to do further investigation to see the condition. The intent was to put dehumidification in all middle schools, but the first one that we looked at was Parcells, then we looked at Brownell, and I believe Pierce after that, but we never went forward with installation of the dehumidification system because of all of these other issues related to those pools.
Fair to say that Pierce is the next one that we have concerns with. So Pierce could be days, could be months, could be a couple of years. So to answer your question, there's some concerns with Pierce at this juncture.
Mr. Stanley, so is the figure that's listed on here, the 5 million, could it could actually be more than that then, if you have to put the dehumidification in there?
I would say 5 million would be a good number to do the structural modifications, the abatement, and the dehumidification, the ceiling and the lighting. I believe that I did some rough numbers for the pool heater and the dehumidification alone is about between 1 to 1.5 million. But then we have to, of course, do all of that work prior to the installation of that equipment, which would be modification of the structure, abatement, and the ceiling and lighting, which is I believe, the $3 million figure. So it's landing about 4.5 million, close to 5 million.
So I just want to clarify. The 3 million is if it were not to reopen as a pool, but structurally sound to be reopened in some capacity. He's talking about 1.5 million would be additional for the dehumidification and whatever else you just said. The pool heater and so forth. And then of course there's an operating expense yearly. And like I said, if you open, just factually, if you open Parcells, in 2 years, Pierce closes. So it is a concern with the middle school pools that don't have the dehumidification.
So I heard you say it's about 400 to 500 just to operate annually for Parcells pool. Do you have any idea of all 3 of them?
I can't say what it would be for the other pools. I believe at Parcells it's about 110,000 gallons. And rule of thumb is $1 per gallon for operational costs for gas, electric, chemicals, and whatnot associated with the pool. And then on top of that, I do a lot of rec centers. So typically the annual cost for operations for a rec center pool or high school pool, whatever, like I said, $1 per square foot plus staffing. That's your big number. Yeah. So it could land around 250,000 and 300,000 just for staffing alone for those type of facilities.
Are there any requirements for swimming at middle schools?
No, it's not mandatory.
Not mandatory.
One more question, a follow-up to that question. What about other districts? Do other districts have pools in their middle schools?
So my school district was Birmingham Public Schools. We have 3 middle schools that have pools and 2 high schools that have pools. But as far as PTW,
There's a few, but it's not very common.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've probably seen, at least in my experience, a lot of pools being filled in for the same reason, age and operational costs, and districts struggle to support that. All right, thank you, Mr. Simpian. If there's no further questions, we'll go to the next slide. So again, I'm prepping you so that you can think for a moment. These are the questions that's going to be asked of you on the QR code that will be coming up after these slides. So the action items that you're going to be asked. Does the majority approve the proposed scope reductions related to the furniture? You're going to have a yes or no question. LED, same question. Do you approve the proposed scope reductions for the LED lighting? The boiler scope, I talked about that. That's moving 2 boilers into deferred. Dr. Stanley, can you advance me one?
Sorry?
No, advance me one slide, please.
Yep.
Parcells pool area renovation. What is on the question is, does the majority approve allocating the 3.75 to reinvent the Parcells pool space? Reinvention, I guess, if there was a note that afterwards we will have an opportunity to expound upon your information. If you say, yes, I support it as a pool, or yes, I support it as something else, there will be finances necessary to do anything with that part. The IA building replacement, again, I'm not going to go over that. I think that was pretty clear. The Elworthy Court, so you know what was in and what is not in what I'm proposing. So if you support minimally what I'm proposing, but you want to add in the narrative portion, but I would also support restrooms, whatever the case may be. Continuing. And then the additional athletic facilities, the one at the north, one at the south location to be determined. That'll be your first QR code. Depending on, we're looking at approximately a 66% pass rate, so to speak, or approval rating on those. If all of those things come to fruition, as I indicated in column E, there's approximately $5 million that can be utilized in projects that you have shared this evening, with the intent that Plant Moran will put numbers to those projects and bring those back at the next meeting. If you don't support something and we have to add back in, hypothetically, LED lighting, then there are things that are currently in the proposal that will move below the line, and there'll have to be discussions moving forward on those. But there are some things that simply can't move before the line because the board has to consider them, like the IA building, and so forth. Any questions about what's going to be asked of you in a moment? If you have not, would you please get your name tag at some point in this exercise? I just want to see what's left and who is not here tonight, so I can see that by what's remaining. If you have any questions about if you're having trouble accessing, Dr. Stanley is here to assess, so just raise your hand. I will let you know when there's about 1 minute remaining in this activity, and the QR code is coming on the screen now.
I've shared the QR code with everybody in this group. If you could please make sure that the first one that you're doing is the one that says, it says reduction survey.
Bond scope reduction?
Yes, bond scope reduction. If you could do that one first. I did count. I think there's 24 people here that should be taking that survey. We'll go ahead and give you a couple of moments, and then we'll be able to tally up everything.
The next QR code will be what you want to additionally consider, so that's not going on this one. Yes. All right, I'm going to reconvene. So in a moment, I'm going to ask Dr. Stanley to please show the results. Remember, the requirement would be 66% or higher, and then depending on what makes it into that will determine what is left over for the projects that you described in your 1 minute that were captured by Mrs. Fannin. Additionally, in a moment, you're going to have a QR code that you can write anything additional that you would like us, if perhaps you didn't include it in your 1 minute. So we'll do a drum roll, kidding, Dr. Bishop.
Okay, so 24 people took this, as you can see. Okay, 24 people. Do you approve the proposed scope reductions related to furniture? We had a 95% response rate, 95.8%, and one saying no. Do you approve the proposed scope for LED lighting? 100% said yes. Going down to boiler scope and cost reductions. 100% said that they approved the proposed scope and cost reductions for boilers, with the understanding that 2 boilers have been deferred and will be funded through the sinking funds. As for Parcells Pool, do you approve allocating $3.75 million to reinvent the space that was formerly the Parcells Pool? Note, this does not mean that the pool space will reopen as a pool. 95% said yes, 95+%. As for the IA building, same, 95.8%. Do you approve the demolition of the current IA facility and the construction of a new structure designated for the storage of facilities and the grounds equipment? For Elworthy Courts, 100% said yes. Do you approve allocating $2.25 million for the Elworthy Courts proposal? And then for additional athletic fields, 87.5% said yes. Do you approve the addition of 2 new athletic facilities, one at North and one at South? And then we did have some open-ended responses.
Those are just for us, for planning for next purposes,
Okay.
so thank you for that. So what that means is if we can go back to the here slide, I think it was slide 4 perhaps, and go to here 1, which is the column E. I'm going to talk without a microphone if that's okay, if everyone can hear me. Which means that whole column E was approved by 66% or higher, which then means that the remaining to be allocated is roughly, can you hit just the first here 1? Yep, perfect, thank you. Column E, if you scroll down to the sum at the bottom of column E, which was $54,750,000, so roughly $5,250,000 yet to allocate. So now you're going to get a QR code that allows you to indicate what you think or what you would advocate for that additional $5 million. That'll be the end of today's meeting. We'll talk just a little bit at the end. And then that information is what we, as a team, will go back in a very expedited fashion. I don't even know if we'll have time to give you homework. I know that bums you up, but and then you, as a team, will give all the ideas. Plant Moran will put a number associated with those ideas, and those are the things that we'll be talking about. So I feel like we're very close. We'll be talking about at the final meeting. Okay. So the QR code, and we'll show that so everyone can kind of see. I'm going to give you about 6 minutes, so about 1:45. If you can complete that, if you need more time, I can do so. But let's aim for that. Again, if you need to use the restroom. Yes?
Is there any opportunity to add in something like early childhood education?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yep.
But I mean, not that you've added it in yourself, that we're all voting on it instead of...
So we're going to take all the ideas that we either spoken in the 1 minute or written in the survey.
I see.
And then those will be the point of discussion at our final meeting.
I misunderstood. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions about what you're being asked to do? All right, have at it. The bad table. I want to get you out of here early, so I just want to reiterate that what we will do with the information is we have a solidified $54,750,000. We, and when I say we, I mean the team of Plant Moran and administration, will now put some price tags to whatever you added in your 1 minute, in addition to whatever was just added via the QR code. If time permits, we'll send that out to you prior to next week's meeting. If it's just too expedited, we will not, and we will share it as a whole group. And the objective of the next week's meeting then will be to decide what will be utilized in that remaining $5.25 million. Okay, when our next meeting is May 28th, same place, same time.
1 week today.
1 week from today. Any last minute thoughts for the good of the order? Thank you. I want to sincerely thank you. Did you want to start? I want to sincerely thank you. I thought the exercise went really well. I appreciate you doing your homework. You're great students, probably A students in school, most of you. I won't call out those who were not, but I want to thank you. And President Worden, if you have some last minute thoughts or no? Are you good?
No.
Okay. President.
I do want to say that the North soccer team is winning right now.
Yay.
I'm going to head over there.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.